Another thing we should just mention also, when you have your eclipse glasses, you still shouldn't stare at the sun for long periods. These are not designed to stare at the sun for minutes at a time. The best thing to do is to put on the glasses, have a short, quick look at the sun, and then look away. And maybe share the glasses, give them to someone else. Do not just stare at the sun for long periods. And just the final safety message, if there are children, just be very careful with children and supervise children carefully. Meanwhile, back in Asia, it looks like we are around about maximum eclipse in Bela in Pakistan. So this is in southern Pakistan, close to the Arabian Sea. Maximum eclipse is around about now. Magnitude 0.98. So
they
don't, very, very close.
The horns won't meet. Yeah.
So this is as close to annularity as they will get in Bela. They are very close to the path of annularity, but just not quite on the path. So that crescent sun, the horns of the crescent, they get closer and closer, but that's as far around the moon as they go. This is maximum eclipse in Bela. From now, the moon will start sliding off the face of the sun and will start uncovering the sun once again.
But we are going to see a full ring of fire from India. I still see some clouds going by there. I'm hoping that they're just passing clouds in about 20 minutes time.
That's right. So again, yes, 6:26 is the annularity in Sirsa.
So we're really closing in. We're going to leave you with this beautiful image, and we will come back soon. Make sure you tune in to timeanddate.com/live. There you can read about all the other places that we've passed. There's a blog full of content there. You've got access to our gallery. So make sure you go and check that out. And Graham, you and I will be back soon. welcome back. We've been looking at some images there from Sirsa in India, and oh, there are a few clouds there that are really annoying me, Graham.
How about that? We've had pretty much clear skies from our feeds so far, and now here we are, 10 minutes away from annularity, and yeah, those clouds are causing a bit of concern. But Anna, I'm sure this is going to go fine for us. I'm sure
Yeah,
we're going to get
yeah, yeah,
a great view of annularity here.
yeah. I'm hoping for that. And what do we look out for during annularity?
Well, the great thing with annularity is that crescent sun, the two tips of the crescent sun, they wrap their way further and further around the dark circle of the moon. It becomes quite mesmerizing as the ring gets closer and closer to being formed until finally the sun forms a complete ring around the dark moon. We're going to see this happening over the next 9 minutes here from Sirsa. One other thing to look out for as annularity begins is Bailey's beads.
What are they?
Now, many people are familiar with Bailey's beads from total eclipses. This is just before the moon completely covers the sun during a total eclipse. There are just some final beads of sunlight that can be seen shining through valleys on the surface of the moon. But Bailey's beads also apply to annular eclipses. In fact, Francis Bailey, the English astronomer who first gave the proper description of what these beads of sunlight were, he actually wrote his paper after observing an annular eclipse in Scotland in 1836. So as the moon moves across the sun and as that ring of fire forms, just before the ring becomes a full ring, we might see a slightly broken ring. Just these beads of light. This is the sun shining through the valleys between mountains on the very edge of the moon. And that's going to be one exciting feature to look out for during annularity. Interestingly, our partners in Sirsa, Ajay and Neelam, they have based themselves just north of the center line of the path of annularity. If you're on the very center line of the eclipse, then the moon passes right through the center of the sun. Our feed is coming from just north of the center line. It's about 4 kilometers north of the center line. This means that instead of passing right through the center of the sun, the moon is going to be just grazing, sliding more across the edge of the sun. This means that annularity will be a bit shorter, but it'll give us more chance to see Bailey's beads. So we're giving up a few seconds of annularity to have a better chance of seeing Bailey's beads as the moon grazes across the edge of the sun.
And it looks like the clouds are staying away. We've got about 5 minutes until we're at annularity in Sirsa. So I think we're just going to leave you here unless you have some more things to tell us about what to look at during annularity, Graham?
No, I think it would be great to just enjoy watching this 5-minute countdown, and then we will have about 30 seconds of annularity from Sirsa, and then the ring will be broken again, and we will be back to a crescent sun, but on the other side of the sun. The crescent sun will have flipped around, and it'll be a mirror image of what we're looking at now.
Super excited. We're going to leave you with that. Make sure you go to timeanddate.live and check out our blog there. There's more explanations there. And we're going to leave you with some spectacular images from India. We'll see you soon. Well, we're back, and wow, that was pretty awesome. Wasn't it, Graham?
That was great. We got lucky with the clouds, and we had beautiful annularity from Sursa. Absolutely.
Mm. And you can explain a little bit more why the Ring of Fire was so skinny. We do have a really good graphic that can help us explain this. The reason for this.
Right, right. So the annularity we saw, as you say, the ring was extremely narrow, and as we said earlier, the geometry of the Earth, Moon, Sun system is really finely balanced. The diagram that we have on the screen now, on the left hand side, we are looking down on the Earth from space, and we're looking at the Earth and the Moon, and we're looking at the different shadows of the Moon. So the big shadow we're looking at is the penumbra. Anywhere in the penumbra you see a partial eclipse. The dark shadow just to the right of the Moon, that's the umbra. That's what gives us total eclipses. And today we're looking at the third kind of shadow, the antumbra, and this is where the Moon becomes silhouetted against the Sun. But this thing is really finely balanced. The Moon's umbra misses the Earth, I mean, really just by thousands of kilometers. So the antumbra is extremely small. The closer you get to the Moon, the smaller the antumbral shadow becomes. So on our globe, we have marked two locations. So here, the bottom location, this is down towards the bottom of the Earth. The curvature of the Earth has actually taken that location a little bit further away from the Sun. So the Moon's antumbral shadow is bigger. At the beginning of our broadcast, Anna, when we looked at the world map and we looked at the Moon's shadow moving across the map, we saw that the shadow was changing shape as it moved across the globe. At the start and at the end of the eclipse, it was much bigger, but in the middle it became much smaller. And that's what this diagram is showing us. If we look at our second location on the globe, if we move up on the globe, here the Earth's curvature is actually bringing us up closer to the Moon. It's bringing us closer to the Moon's umbra. It's bringing us closer to a total eclipse. Now, today it was impossible to actually get right into the umbra, but at the midway point of the eclipse, it is only just an annular eclipse. It's very, very close to being a total eclipse. Now, the annularity that we just watched in Sirsa, this happened at 11:56 a.m. local time. So it was pretty much noon local time. That tells us that it really was near the middle of the path of annularity. It was about as close to the Moon as we are going to get today. The result of that is shown on the right-hand side of this diagram. We've got two images of the Sun in our eclipse view box on the right-hand side. Now, the bottom image is taken from our first location on the globe. That's where we're further away from the Moon. The Moon's antumbral shadow is bigger, and when we look up at the Moon, we see a smaller Sun. And a smaller Sun gives us a thicker ring. it's a thicker ring of fire.
But
at our second location, which was, where we were with Circe just now, we're much closer to the moon. The moon is bigger, and that means that the ring of fire is much narrower, and, well, it put us very close to having a total eclipse today.
Yeah, because it's just a really, really skinny little ring there. And so then the annularity is shorter.
Annularity is shorter, that's right. So at the beginning of today's path of annularity, it began in Central Africa at sunrise. There, annularity lasted over a minute because the moon looked smaller. The moon needed more time to work its way across the face of the sun. When we got to India, the moon, closer to the moon became bigger. The moon needs less time to reach across from one side of the sun to the other. So the duration of annularity, only about half the length at the midway point of today's eclipse.
And if we used like a really, really tall ladder, or stood on top of a really, really tall mountain, or tried to get those few thousand kilometers up, then could we have seen a total solar eclipse?
Well, that's right. That's a very good question. Is there any way we can get closer to the moon? I'm not sure about your ladder idea, but certainly the mountains does make a difference. Now, today's annular eclipse is passing over the Himalayas. It's passing over Tibet. The high point of today's eclipse is in the Himalayas. There's the mountain Hardeo, which is 7,500 meters high. That gets us 7.5 kilometers closer to the moon, which isn't that much, but the thing's so finely balanced that that difference of a few kilometers does make a difference in what we see. Now, nowhere did we get a total eclipse today. Nowhere gets us quite close enough to form, to give us totality. But up at the peaks of the Himalayas, the ring of fire would have been even narrower. And Tibet, the plains of Tibet are at 5,000 meters. Again, that's an extra 5 kilometers closer to the sun. So there, again in Tibet, we're looking at a very, very narrow ring of fire.
Could you actually fly up? Could you take yourself up high enough to be so that it would be a total eclipse if you didn't climb a mountain?
Well, we are looking at we would need to close a gap of a few thousand kilometers. Okay. So it isn't actually. There's no way that we could have actually got ourselves into the moon's umbra today. So, but the point is that yes, the closer you can get to the moon, the bigger the moon is, so the narrower the ring of fire is during an annular eclipse.
That's very interesting. And again, we're looking at Circe, and the eclipses. We've been at annularity there, so we're looking at the partial eclipse again on the other side of the moon, right, Graham?
That's right. We now have the whole process runs in reverse, and that crescent sun will become bigger as the moon slides off the face of the sun. The main action in today's eclipse is now shifting eastwards, so partial eclipses are starting. Let's see, in Taiwan, the final bit of land in today's great overland eclipse is Taiwan, and the partial eclipse is starting in Taiwan in around about 2 minutes. So the main all of the action in the sky is now shifting towards the eastern half of the Asian continent.
So we're moving along with the shadow of the Antabra.
That's right. That's right. Yes, yes. Also, partial eclipse starting in. In fact, here we have now on our screen. So this is now coming live from Taipei in the northern part of Taiwan. Now, Taipei is not on the path of annularity today. We are hoping to get images from Taiwan further south as well from the path of annularity. In Taipei, the partial phase of the eclipse will start at 6:50 UTC, which is in around about a minute. If we keep watching this image, we might be able to see the start of the partial eclipse. Now, in Taiwan, the moon should start eating away at the sun from. If the sun was a clock face, the moon should start eating away from around about somewhere between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the clock face of the sun. So we can have a look at this sun and see if we can see the moon
there you go.
starting to. Oh, no, right. We've got our. This is from our time and date graphic. This is the situation in time. So the moon is right somewhere between the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock position. The moon should start eating away at the sun any moment now. Here we are back in Cersa.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we'll see.
If we maybe went back to the view from right.
There might be some clouds going on. We're going to leave you with this, and hopefully we'll get our feeds from there. You go, it's back, and we're going to leave you for a while. We will be back with more things to learn about eclipses soon. Talk to you later. Bye. Hello again. We're looking at a beautiful city picture here from Taipei in Taiwan. We're back on timeanddate.live, and we're looking at this annular solar eclipse. And we talked about a little bit in the start that it's on a date that's it's like 6-7 hours away from the solstice, which feels less like a coincidence or not. That depends on what you explain, Graham.
Right. So the June solstice. This is the moment when the Earth's north pole is tilted the closest towards the sun. It's the moment when the Earth's northern hemisphere receives the maximum amount of sunlight. And it's a curious coincidence that this year, the June solstice coincides with this annular eclipse. So the question is, how unusual is it to have an eclipse on the June solstice? And you know what? It turns out to be a very interesting question.
We did look into our calculations to figure that out, because any solstice happening on no any solar eclipse happening on any date can be random, but there's also a system to it, right, Graham?
That's right. It's one of these things that kind of is random, but also it's not completely random. So let's take the question of how frequently a solar eclipse occurs on a particular date. Now, this is a little bit different from the June solstice question, because the June solstice can occur on June 20th or June 21st, or even sometimes June 22nd. But to simplify things, let's just take the one date, June 21st. How often does an eclipse occur on June 21st? Now, to do this, we're going to have to think about some of the rhythms of the moon. There are a number of important rhythms that the moon has. The most obvious rhythm is the lunar cycle that takes us from a new moon to a full moon and back to a new moon again. And the time it takes the moon to go from a new moon all the way through the cycle back to a new moon again, that's called a synodic month. That is a period of 29.53 days, a synodic month. It comes from the Greek word synodos, which means meeting, because a new moon is kind of like a meeting of the moon and the sun. A new moon is where the moon moves between the earth and the sun, and this gives us this term, a synodic month. The first requirement, the most basic requirement for a solar eclipse is to have a new moon, because you need to have the moon between the earth and the sun. But of course, we don't have a solar eclipse every new moon. We don't have a solar eclipse every synodic month. Now, the reason for that is that the moon's orbit around the earth is slightly tilted. So most new moons, you don't get a perfect alignment between the earth, the moon, and the sun. The moon is either just a tiny bit too high or a tiny bit too low, and you don't get this perfect alignment every month. Now, going back to the synodic month, this period of 29.53 days, there is a curious a curious coincidence. If you take 235 synodic months, that's 235 times 29.53 days, you end up with almost exactly, you end up with 19 calendar years.
Oh.
Which means that every 19 years, the same lunar phase happens on the same date. So today, June 21st, it's a new moon. 19 years from now, we will also have a new moon on June 21st. 19 years ago in the past, June 21st, we had a new moon. Now, of course, we've just said that because of the moon's tilted orbit, just because it's a new moon, that doesn't guarantee you a solar eclipse. However, there is a very freaky relationship between the moon's tilted orbit and this cycle of 19 years. This cycle of 19 years, it's called the Metonic cycle. It's named after Meton of Athens, an ancient Greek mathematician. And there is this curious coincidence that the Metonic cycle gives us a freakish run of 4 or 5 solar eclipses 19 years apart. And then the cycle, the relationship breaks down and you get no solar eclipses on that date for about 3 centuries. But we are in the middle of this freakish run right now. So today, 21st of June, 2020, we have an annular solar eclipse. 19 years from today, 21st of June, 2039, we will have another annular eclipse on the same date. 19 years ago in the past, 21st of June 2001, we had a total solar eclipse, and we can actually go one step more into the future and the past. 21st of June 2058, this is 2 19-year cycles into the future, there will be a partial solar eclipse on the 21st of June in 2058. And there was a partial solar eclipse on the 21st of June, 1982. That is 2 19-year cycles into the past. So we have this very freakish run of 5 solar eclipses on the 21st of June, separated by this period of 19 years. But that's as much as you get. Then you have centuries without a solar eclipse on the 21st of June. It is just this curious relationship between this 19-year lunar cycle and just the tilt of the moon's orbit gives us this very freakish relationship.
But the one in 2039 will also happen on the solstice, right?
So 2039, that is also the solstice, right? 21st of June, 2039. So that is, we just have to wait 19 years for another June solstice annular eclipse.
But there are other calendar relationships, aren't there, between the eclipses that come every 6 months? We have a calendar illustration, don't we?
Right. So, the moon has a number of rhythms to it. And this calendar that we're looking at demonstrates another important rhythm, and that is the rhythm of the tilt of the moon's orbit. So we're looking here at a 4-year period of solar eclipses, and we know that for a solar eclipse we need to have a new moon, but we also need to have the moon's tilted orbit aligned just right. Now, it turns out that about every 6 months, the moon's tilted orbit comes into alignment for a period of about 34 days. There's a 34-day period when the moon's tilt is close enough to make a solar eclipse possible. This is called an eclipse season. For about 34 days, the tilt aligns and the stage is set for a solar eclipse. All we need to add is a new moon. Now we know that
we're in the middle of a solar eclipse season right now, aren't we? Sorry for interrupting. We're in the middle of one right now.
Well,
we had a partial lunar eclipse, a penumbral lunar eclipse in the start of the month, and we're going to have another one. We have our annular solar eclipse now, and then we're going to have another penumbral lunar eclipse in the start of July, right?
That's right. So we have this period of 34 days, an eclipse season. And during that period, any new moon will produce a solar eclipse somewhere on the Earth. Likewise, any full moon will produce a lunar eclipse. Now, because we know from the synodic month that we get a new moon every 29.53 days, we also get a full moon every 29.53 days. Because the eclipse season is 34 days long, that guarantees that there must be at least one solar eclipse and one lunar eclipse in any eclipse season. There might even be two if one comes at the start, one comes at the finish. And you mentioned just now, we had a penumbral lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago. We will have another penumbral lunar eclipse in 2 weeks' time. So this eclipse season has 3 eclipses, 1 solar and 2 lunar eclipses. And the solar eclipse calendar we have on the screen at the moment shows the solar eclipses we've had during these seasons over a 4-year period. This is also nice, Anna, because this is a bit of a memory lane trip for us as well on timeanddate.com. So February 26th, 2017, there was an annular eclipse across South America and Central Africa. I was on the ground in Angola for timeanddate.com for that eclipse.